The dust-laden wind carried whispers of judgment through Copper Creek as Zara Summers stumbled down the main street, clutching a tattered carpet bag in one hand and her threadbare shawl in the other. The townsfolk stopped to stare, their eyes narrowing with immediate disapproval at the sight of her worn boots and the once fine dress now patched in 3 places. It was 1876, and the West had little mercy for a woman alone, especially one with her reputation. "There she goes," Mrs. Peterson muttered to the general store owner as Zara passed. "Hopeless case, that one. 3rd town in 2 years, I hear." Zara kept her eyes forward, pretending not to hear, though the words stung like sand against raw skin. At 22, she had already weathered more storms than most faced in a lifetime. The daughter of a failed prospector who had drunk himself to death after her mother's passing, Zara had been passed from relative to relative until there were none left willing to take her in. Her last position as a schoolteacher had ended when the town council decided her father's reputation made her unfit to influence young minds, though her students had flourished under her care. The Copper Creek Hotel loomed before her, its weathered signs swinging in the afternoon breeze. It wasn't much, but the position of housekeeper advertised in the territorial newspaper had been her last hope. $3 a week and a small room enough to survive until she could find something better. Miss Summers, the hotel owner, Mrs. Hathaway, was a square woman with suspicious eyes. "You're early." "Yes, madam." The stage made good time. Mrs. Hathaway looked her up and down. "You don't look sturdy enough for this work." "I'm stronger than I appear," Zara replied, lifting her chin slightly. "And I learn quickly." "We'll see." The woman sniffed. "Your references are thin, but honest. Follow me." The room was small, barely space for the narrow bed and washstand, but it was clean. Zara set down her bag, fighting the urge to collapse onto the bed. She'd traveled for 3 days straight, changing coaches twice, spending nights on hard bench seats rather than paying for lodging. "You start at dawn," Mrs. Hathaway said from the doorway. 20 rooms to clean, linens to wash, and you'll help in the kitchen when needed. 1 day off a month. Any questions?" "No, madam. Thank you for the opportunity. Don't make me regret it." The door closed firmly behind her. Zara sank onto the bed, finally allowing her shoulders to slump. She pulled a small book of poetry from her bag, her one indulgence, and opened it to a dog-eared page. "This too shall pass," she whispered to herself. Across town, in the much livelier atmosphere of the Lucky Strike Saloon, Noah Lawson leaned against the bar, watching a high-stakes poker game unfold. At 29, he had established himself as one of the most respected cattle ranchers in the territory. His Double L Ranch employed 15 men and ran 800 head of cattle across 3,000 acres of prime grazing land. "Another whiskey, Noah?" Barney, the bartender, held up the bottle. "Just water. Heading back to the ranch soon." "Suit yourself." Barney slid a glass of water across the polished surface. "Heard you're looking for a new foreman." Noah nodded. "Tom's heading back east. His mother's ailing." "Shame. He was good." "The best," Noah agreed, his gray eyes scanning the room out of habit. He'd learned young to stay aware of his surroundings. The son of a Texas Ranger who'd died in the line of duty, Noah had worked his way up from ranch hand to owner through determination and an almost uncanny understanding of cattle and land management. The saloon doors swung open, bringing with them a blast of hot air and Sheriff Wilson. The lawman nodded at Noah before making his way to the bar. "Lawson, thought I'd find you here." "Sheriff, everything all right. Got a telegram from Fort Collins. That rustling operation we broke up last month? Turns out they've got connections to a bigger outfit. Might want to double your night riders for a while." Noah nodded, his jaw tightening. He'd lost 12 head last month before they caught the thieves. "Appreciate the warning. How's that Mustang coming along?" "The black one." A smile tugged at Noah's lips. "Diablo. Still trying to live up to his name. Nearly took my head off yesterday, but we're getting there." "Never understood why you waste time on those wild ones when you can buy trained stock." Noah shrugged. "Something about the challenge, I guess. And they make better horses in the end if you've got the patience." "Well, not everyone's got your touch with the impossible cases." The sheriff chuckled. "Speaking of which, town's got a new arrival. Miss Summers, taking the hotel job. Heard she's been run out of 2 towns already. Daughter of that drunk who lost his mind looking for gold in the Black Hills." "Don't recall asking for gossip, Sheriff," Noah said, his voice cooling slightly. Just making conversation. Mrs. Hathaway's already betting she won't last a week. They're calling her a hopeless case, too educated for her own good, but not practical enough to make her way out here. Noah drained his water and set the glass down with more force than necessary. Seems to me people should worry more about their own affairs. No argument here, Sheriff Wilson replied, raising his hands in surrender. Just passing along the news. Noah tipped his hat to Barney and headed for the door. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the dusty street. His horse, a sturdy chestnut gelding named Buck, stood patiently at the hitching post. As he untied the reins, movement across the street caught his eye. A slender woman with copper-colored hair emerged from the general store, a small package tucked under her arm. She moved with a strange mix of determination and caution, like someone used to navigating treacherous terrain. Mrs. Peterson and her sewing circle friends stood nearby, their heads together, voices carrying just enough for Noah to catch fragments about that Summer girl and doesn't know her place. The woman, Miss Summers, he presumed, walked past them with her head high, but her eyes down. Something about her composure in the face of obvious gossip struck him. She didn't flinch or hurry, just continued on her way with quiet dignity. Noah found himself watching her until she disappeared around the corner toward the hotel. There was a story there more than what the gossips were telling, and Noah had always been curious about stories others dismissed. Shaking his head slightly, he mounted Buck and headed for home. He had a ranch to run. No time for town mysteries, no matter how intriguing. Dawn came too early for Zara, but she was ready nonetheless, hair neatly pinned beneath a simple cap, wearing the plain gray dress that was part of her new uniform. Mrs. Hathaway seemed surprised to find her waiting in the kitchen when she came down. "At least you're punctual," she said by way of greeting. "Emily will show you what needs doing." Emily, a plump woman in her 40s with kind eyes, smiled warmly at Zara. "Don't mind the old dragon," she whispered when Mrs. Hathaway was out of earshot. "Her bark's worse than her bite. Come on, I'll show you around." The work was exhausting, hauling water, scrubbing floors, changing linens, emptying chamber pots, but Zara tackled each task methodically. By midday, her hands were raw and her back ached fiercely, but she'd completed 11 rooms. "You're faster than the last girl," Emily commented, bringing Zara a plate of stew during their brief lunch break. "She quit after 3 days." "I'm not quitting," Zara said simply, too hungry to talk much. After lunch came laundry, great sheets being boiled in copper tubs, then wrung and hung to dry. Zara's arms trembled with the effort, but she pressed on until every piece was clean. It was nearly dark when she finished her duties. Mrs. Hathaway inspected her work with narrowed eyes, clearly looking for flaws. "The corners of the beds on the second floor aren't tight enough," she finally said. "And you missed dust on the window ledges in rooms 7 and 12. Do better tomorrow." "Yes, madam." Too tired to venture out for dinner, Zara ate the bread and cheese she'd purchased the day before, washing it down with water from the pitcher in her room. Her muscles screamed in protest as she undressed and washed up, but there was a certain satisfaction in honest fatigue. 3 days passed in much the same fashion. Zara kept to herself, aware of the whispers that followed her around town during her errands. On the 4th day, a commotion broke the monotony of her morning routine. "The Lawson party is here," Mrs. Hathaway announced, bustling into the kitchen where Zara was folding napkins. "Mr. Lawson is holding a dinner for his cattle buyers. We'll need the private dining room prepared immediately. Zara, you'll serve." "Me?" Zara blinked in surprise. She'd been kept away from guests thus far. "Emily's down with that tooth. Just keep your eyes down and your mouth shut. These are important people." Zara scrambled to help prepare the private dining room, setting the table with the hotel's best china and polishing water glasses until they sparkled. At precisely 6 o'clock, the party arrived, 5 men in business suits, and one in ranching clothes that somehow looked more distinguished than the others' formal wear. "Mr. Lawson, welcome," Mrs. Hathaway gushed, leading them in. "Everything is prepared to your specifications." The man in ranching clothes nodded politely. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and keen gray eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. When those eyes briefly met Zara's, she felt a strange jolt, as though she'd been recognized even though they'd never met. "Thank you, Mrs. Hathaway." Gentlemen, shall we? Zara served silently, filling water glasses and bringing dishes from the kitchen. The conversation flowed around her talk of cattle prices, railroad expansion, and grazing rights. She kept her eyes down as instructed, but couldn't help noticing that while the businessman drank freely of the wine, Mr. Lawson barely touched his glass. It happened as she was serving dessert. Mr. Harrison, the loudest of the cattle buyers, gestured broadly, his elbow catching Zara's arm. The dish of apple cobbler tilted precariously, and a large portion slid directly into Mr. Harrison's lap. "Damnation!" he bellowed, jumping to his feet. "Look what you've done, you clumsy girl." "I'm terribly sorry, sir," Zara said, mortified, reaching for a napkin. "Don't touch me." Harrison snapped. "Mrs. Hathaway, is this the best help you can provide? Some hopeless case who can't even serve a simple dessert?" The room went silent. Zara stood frozen, the empty dish in her hands. "It was an accident caused by your own gesture, Harrison." Mr. Lawson's voice cut through the tension, calm but firm. "The lady has already apologized." "Lady?" Harrison scoffed. "I've heard about this one. Drifter's daughter who can't hold a position. They say that's enough." Lawson's tone left no room for argument. He stood, his height imposing even though his manner remained controlled. "Your suit can be cleaned. There's no need for insults." Mrs. Hathaway appeared, her face pinched with anger. "Zara, go to the kitchen immediately. Mr. Harrison, please accept our deepest apologies. We'll cover your cleaning costs, of course." Zara fled, her cheeks burning with humiliation. In the kitchen, she leaned against the wall, willing her hands to stop trembling. Emily, who had come in despite her toothache to help with the meal, patted her shoulder. "There now. Accidents happen. Mrs. Hathaway will dismiss me," Zara whispered. "Where will I go?" "Nonsense. Mr. Lawson stood up for you, didn't he? And his word carries weight in this town." Zara shook her head. "It doesn't matter. People like me don't get second chances." Later that evening, after the dinner party had departed, Mrs. Hathaway summoned Zara to her office. Her expression was grim. "I should dismiss you after that display." "Yes, madam. Mr. Harrison wanted me to. Said he'd take his business elsewhere if I kept you on." Zara stared at the floor, resignation settling over her like a heavy blanket. "However," Mrs. Hathaway continued, "Mr. Lawson left this." She pushed a folded note across the desk. Hesitantly, Zara opened it. "Mrs. Hathaway, I trust you will recognize that this evening's incident was merely an accident and not reflective of your staff's capabilities. Miss Summers conducted herself with dignity under difficult circumstances. I would consider it a personal courtesy if you would disregard Mr. Harrison's demands regarding her employment." "Noah Lawson." Zara stared at the note, bewildered. "I don't understand. He doesn't even know me." "Noah Lawson doesn't need to know you to recognize injustice," Mrs. Hathaway said with a sigh. "He's different from most men of his standing. Some say it's because of how he built his ranch from nothing. Others say it's because of his mother's influence. She was half Cheyenne, you know." This was news to Zara. "No, I didn't know." "Well, in any case, you can stay. But one more incident, and not even Noah Lawson's word will save your position." "Understood." "Yes, madam. Thank you." Zara returned to her room, the note clutched in her hand. Why would a successful rancher defend a hotel maid he'd never spoken to? The question followed her into restless dreams. The following Sunday, her first day off, Zara walked to the small creek just outside town. She'd brought her book and a simple lunch, desperate for solitude after a week of constant work and scrutiny. The cottonwood trees provided welcome shade as she settled on a flat rock by the water. She was so absorbed in her reading that she didn't notice the rider approaching until his horse nickered softly. Looking up with a start, she found herself staring at Noah Lawson, mounted on a magnificent black horse that danced restlessly beneath him. "Miss Summers," he greeted her, tipping his hat. "Apologies for disturbing your peace." "Mr. Lawson." She stood quickly, marking her place in the book. "You didn't disturb me. I should thank you for your intervention the other night. It was unexpected but deeply appreciated." He dismounted with easy grace, keeping a firm hold on the reins of the spirited black horse. "No thanks necessary." Harrison was out of line. Up close, she could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes and the lines at their corners that suggested he smiled more than he frowned. He looked younger than she'd first thought, perhaps not yet 30. Even so, you didn't have to involve yourself. Most wouldn't. I'm not most people. He shrugged. Neither are you, from what I can tell. Zara tensed. What have you heard? Enough to know people talk too much and understand too little. He nodded toward her book. What are you reading? Surprised by the change of subject, she held up the volume. Tennyson. It's a small indulgence. 'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all, he quoted, a half-smile playing at his lips. You know Tennyson? My mother was a great believer in education. Said the West needed more poetry and fewer guns. He glanced at his horse, which was growing increasingly restless. This one needs to run. Diablo doesn't believe in lazy Sunday afternoons. Diablo. The devil. Named himself, really. Been trying to break him for 2 weeks. He's got spirit. Zara studied the magnificent animal, pure black with a white star on his forehead, muscles rippling beneath a glossy coat. He's beautiful. He is that. Noah looked at her curiously. You know horses? My father had a pair when I was young. Before. She trailed off. Noah nodded, not pressing for details. Well, I should let this devil run before he decides to throw me. Good day, Miss Summers. Mr. Lawson. She hesitated, then added, Thank you again. He swung into the saddle with fluid ease. Diablo pranced sideways, eager to be off. Everyone deserves a defender now and then, Miss Summers. Even those who are stronger than they appear. With that, he touched his heels to the horse's sides, and they were gone in a thunder of hoofbeats, leaving Zara to wonder at the strange encounter. 2 days later, disaster struck. Zara was changing linens in room 8 when she heard shouting from below. Racing downstairs, she found the kitchen ablaze, flames licking up the wall toward the wooden ceiling beams. Emily, she cried, spotting the cook frozen in terror near the stove. The oil had caught so fast, Emily stammered. Out. Now. Zara pushed the older woman toward the door, then grabbed a rug, soaking it in the water barrel before beating at the flames. It was useless, the fire spread too quickly. Mrs. Hathaway appeared, her face ashen. Everyone out. The fire brigade's coming. Outside, a crowd gathered as smoke billowed from the hotel's windows. The volunteer fire brigade arrived, forming a bucket line from the water trough to the building. Zara joined automatically, passing buckets alongside townspeople who normally avoided her gaze. Hours later, exhausted and smoke-stained, Zara sat on the boardwalk across the street, watching as the fire chief declared the hotel secure. The kitchen was destroyed, and smoke damage extended to several guest rooms, but the structure stood. All your possessions gone, I expect, came a sympathetic voice. Mrs. Peterson, surprisingly, stood before her with a cup of coffee. Yes, everything. Zara accepted the coffee with murmured thanks. You worked that bucket line like a man, Mrs. Peterson observed. Save the building, they're saying. Zara shook her head. Everyone helped. Not everyone ran into the kitchen first. Mrs. Peterson studied her. Perhaps we've been quick to judge. Before Zara could respond, Mrs. Hathaway approached. The hotel will be closed for repairs. At least 3 weeks. She looked uncomfortable. I can't keep you on, Zara. There's no work and no place for you to stay. The momentary warmth of Mrs. Peterson's approval vanished under the cold reality of her situation. Homeless again, with nothing but the clothes on her back and less than $10 to her name. I understand, she said quietly. Miss Summers can work for me. Noah Lawson stood a few feet away, hat in hand. He looked as if he'd ridden hard to get there, dust coating his clothes. I beg your pardon. Mrs. Hathaway blinked in surprise. My housekeeper left last week. Married the blacksmith in Rockridge. His eyes met Zara's. The position includes room and board at the main house. $5 a week. Zara stared at him, speechless. $5 was nearly twice her current wage. Mr. Lawson, while I appreciate your offer, Miss Summers has no references for such a position, and I believe I just witnessed her reference. Noah interrupted calmly. She ran into a burning building to help others, then worked for hours to save this hotel. I'd say that speaks to her character more than any written word. Mrs. Hathaway closed her mouth, looking flustered. It's Miss Summers' decision, of course, Noah added, turning to Zara. The ranch is 5 miles from town. The work isn't easy, but it's fair. Zara found her voice at last. Why would you offer me this? His expression softened slightly. Let's just say I recognize determination when I see it. And my ranch hands are tired of my cooking. A laugh escaped her before she could stop it. Around them, the townspeople watched with undisguised interest. She knew what they were thinking, that a single woman going to a bachelor's ranch was scandalous. But the alternative was destitution. I accept your offer, Mr. Lawson. Thank you. Good. We'll leave as soon as you're ready. His eyes flickered over her smoke-stained dress. Although, I have nothing else, she admitted softly. Mrs. Peterson stepped forward unexpectedly. Come with me, dear. My daughter left some dresses behind when she married. They might fit you well enough until you can get new ones. An hour later, dressed in a borrowed blue calico dress and seated beside Noah in his wagon, Zara left Copper Creek behind. She felt the stares of the townspeople like physical touches on her back, but for once, they didn't seem entirely hostile. They'll talk, she said as they cleared the town limits. They always do. Noah handled the reins with easy confidence. Does it matter? Zara considered this. It always has before. No one wants to associate with hopeless cases. Noah glanced at her, his expression unreadable in the fading light. Who called you that? Everyone, eventually. My father's reputation saw to that. And what do you think of when people say that about you? The question caught her off guard. No one had ever asked how she felt about the whispers. I think they're wrong, she said finally. I'm many things, but hopeless isn't one of them. He smiled then, a genuine smile that transformed his face. That's why I offered you the job. The Double L Ranch sprawled across a valley, nestled between rolling hills and bisected by a clear stream. The main house was larger than Zara had expected, 2 stories of sturdy logs with a wide porch wrapping around 3 sides. Outbuildings, corrals, and a bunkhouse completed the settlement. It's beautiful, she breathed as they approached. Been building it for 7 years, Noah said, pride evident in his voice. Started with just 50 acres and 30 head of cattle. The house came last. A tall, gray-haired man emerged from the barn as they pulled up. Boss. Heard about the fire in town. Everything all right? Fine, Charlie. This is Miss Summers. She'll be taking over for Mrs. Jenkins. Charlie tipped his hat respectfully. Madam, welcome to Double L. Noah helped Zara down from the wagon. Charlie's my foreman. Best tracker in 3 territories and the only man who can outshoot me. Don't let him fool you, Mississippi. He's being modest. Noah here can hit a playing card at 50 paces. Charlie's weathered face creased in a friendly smile. Come on, I'll show you to your quarters while the boss sees to the horses. Zara's room was at the back of the house, simple but comfortable, with a real bed, a chest of drawers, and a window overlooking the creek. After the hotel's cramped quarters, it felt luxurious. Bathrooms down the hall, Charlie explained. Noah had indoor plumbing put in last year. Quite the modern convenience. Kitchen's through there. Anything else you need? No, thank you. This is more than I expected. Charlie nodded. Boss is a good man. Treats everyone fair. He hesitated. Don't mind the boys if they're shy at first. Not used to having a lady around. How many hands work here? 15 regular, more during roundup. They bunk out back except for me and Noah. I've got the room across the hall. He grinned. Don't worry, I don't snore. Much. After Charlie left, Zara sat on the bed, overwhelmed by the day's events. From near destitution to this peaceful room in a matter of hours, it seemed too good to be true. And perhaps it was. Why would a successful rancher offer such a position to a woman with her reputation? A knock at the open door interrupted her thoughts. Noah stood there, holding a small bundle. Found these in the wagon. Thought you might need them. He handed her a package containing a hairbrush, soap, and a small bottle of lavender water. They belonged to my sister when she visited last year. You have a sister? In Denver. Married a banker. He shrugged. We don't see eye to eye on much, but she's family. Thank you. This is very thoughtful. He lingered in the doorway. Dinner's in an hour. Nothing fancy. The men usually eat in the bunkhouse, but Charlie and I take meals here. You're welcome to join us, or I can have a tray brought if you'd prefer to rest. I'll join you, she said quickly, not wanting to appear ungrateful. He nodded, seeming pleased. Good. I should warn you, Charlie will talk your ear off about the war if you let him. Which side? Union. Same as me, though I was too young to fight. My father wasn't. He didn't return? A shadow crossed Noah's face. No. Shiloh. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. He straightened. Rest a bit. Kitchen duties can wait until tomorrow. After he left, Zara washed up and changed into the fresh dress Mrs. Peterson had provided. It was a bit loose around the waist, but otherwise fit well enough. She brushed her copper hair until it shone, pinning it into a neat bun at the nape of her neck. Dinner was simple beef stew, fresh bread, and apple pie, but delicious. Charlie, as predicted, regaled her with tales of his time in the cavalry, while Noah mostly listened, occasionally steering the conversation away from the bloodier aspects of battle. Enough war stories, Charlie. You'll give Miss Summers nightmares. Sorry, Mississippi. The foreman looked sheepish. Get carried away sometimes. Not at all. My grandfather fought at Gettysburg, Zara said. He used to say the real stories of war weren't about the battles, but about the men who fought them. Charlie nodded approvingly. Smart man, your grandfather. The evening passed pleasantly, and for the first time in years, Zara felt something close to belonging. When she finally retired to her room, exhaustion caught up with her, and she fell into a dreamless sleep. The next weeks established a routine. Zara rose before dawn to prepare breakfast for Noah and Charlie, then spent her mornings cleaning the house, washing clothes, and baking. Afternoons were for mending, gardening, and occasionally helping Charlie with ranch accounts, which she discovered she had a knack for organizing. The ranch hands, initially awkward around her, gradually warmed to her presence, especially after she started sending fresh cookies to the bunkhouse. Even Mrs. Peterson and Emily from the hotel visited once, bringing fabric for new dresses and news from town. Hotel's nearly repaired, Emily reported. Mrs. Hathaway's been asking when you'll return. I don't think I will, Zara admitted. I'm happy here. Mrs. Peterson exchanged knowing glances with Emily. I imagine you are. Noah Lawson's quite the catch, as my Sarah would say. Zara felt her cheeks warm. It's not like that. I'm just his housekeeper. Of course, dear, Mrs. Peterson said, not sounding convinced at all. The truth was more complicated. Noah treated her with unfailing respect, but there were moments a lingering glance across the dinner table, a brush of hands as she passed him coffee, the way his eyes followed her around a room that suggested something beyond employer and employee. Then there was Diablo. The black stallion remained half wild, accepting Noah's saddle but still prone to bucking fits that had thrown even the most experienced hands. Only Noah could ride him, and even he returned with bruises some days. Why do you persist with him? Zara asked one evening as she bandaged a cut on Noah's forearm, the result of being thrown against a fence post. Some things are worth the effort. His eyes held hers. Some spirits aren't meant to be broken, just understood. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken meaning. Then Charlie burst in with news of a missing calf, and the spell broke. That night, unable to sleep, Zara wandered onto the porch. The moon hung full and bright, bathing the ranch in silver light. A movement near the corral caught her eye. Noah, working with Diablo even at this late hour. She watched, mesmerized, as man and horse moved in an intricate dance. Noah spoke continuously, his voice too low to make out the words, but the tones soothing. Diablo circled him warily, ears flicking forward and back. Slowly, Noah extended his hand. The stallion snorted, tossing his head, but didn't retreat. Noah remained motionless, patient, his posture relaxed but alert. Minutes passed. Then, miraculously, Diablo stepped forward and nudged Noah's palm with his velvet nose. The simple gesture of trust brought unexpected tears to Zara's eyes. She must have made some sound, for Noah turned, spotting her on the porch. Can't sleep, he called softly. No. She descended the steps, drawn to the scene before her. Come meet him properly. He's in a good mood. Hesitantly, she approached the fence. Diablo eyed her suspiciously, nostrils flaring. He won't hurt you, Noah assured her. Not while I'm here. I'm not afraid, she said, and realized it was true. He's magnificent. Hold out your hand, palm up. Let him come to you. She did as instructed, heart racing as the powerful animal considered her. Then, to her amazement, Diablo stretched his neck forward and sniffed her hand delicately before allowing her to stroke his forehead. He likes you, Noah said, his voice filled with wonder. He doesn't take to many people. We recognize our own kind, she murmured, meeting the horse's intelligent gaze. Both of us misjudged by appearances. Noah studied her in the moonlight. You understand, don't you? That's why they called you hopeless, because you wouldn't be what they wanted. She nodded, still stroking Diablo's star. My father was weak, so they assumed I was too. My mother loved books, so they decided I was impractical. It was easier than seeing the truth. And what is the truth, Zara? Her name on his lips sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the night air. That I'm neither weak nor impractical. Just different from what they expected. Like this one. Noah patted Diablo's neck. Everyone said to give up on him. That he was too wild, too set in his ways. But you didn't. No. His eyes held hers. Some things are worth believing in when no one else will. Some people too. The air between them seemed to shimmer with possibility. Zara found herself stepping closer, drawn by something she couldn't name. Noah, she began, unsure what she wanted to say. A distant crack shattered the moment gunfire from the direction of the north pasture. Noah tensed instantly. Get back to the house. Now. His voice was sharp with urgency. Wake Charlie. What is it? Rustlers. The north heard. He was already moving, whistling for the ranch hands on night watch. Go, Zara. She ran, heart pounding, rousing Charlie from sleep with her urgent knocking. Within minutes, the ranch erupted into activity, men grabbing rifles, mounting horses, Charlie barking orders as he strapped on his gun belt. Stay inside, lock the doors, he told Zara grimly. Boss would have my hide if anything happened to you. Then they were gone, hoofbeats fading into the night, leaving Zara alone with her fear. She paced the kitchen, jumping at every sound, praying for their safe return. An hour passed. 2. The sky began to lighten with approaching dawn. Finally, riders approached. Zara rushed onto the porch, her relief turning to horror as she saw Noah slumped in the saddle, supported by Charlie, his shirt dark with blood. Get the doctor, Charlie shouted as they lifted Noah from his horse. No time, Noah gasped. Bullets still in. You know what to do, Charlie. They carried him to his bedroom, where Charlie cut away the blood-soaked shirt to reveal a wound in Noah's left shoulder. Zara fought down nausea at the sight. Rustlers got away with 12 head, Charlie explained as he cleaned the wound. Noah took a shot meant for young Jimmy. I need to do something, Zara said, forcing strength into her voice. Boil water. Get my kit from under the bed. And whiskey the good stuff. She worked alongside Charlie, following his instructions precisely, holding Noah steady as Charlie probed for the bullet, wiping his brow as fever set in, changing bandages through the long day that followed. You're doing fine, Charlie reassured her as evening approached. Fever's normal. Bullet's out clean. He's strong. I should never have distracted him, she whispered, guilt weighing on her. If I hadn't been there, he'd have been checking the herd anyway. Part of his routine. Charlie's weathered hand covered hers briefly. This wasn't your fault. That night, she refused to leave Noah's side, dozing in the chair beside his bed, waking at his every movement to offer water or adjust his pillows. Near dawn, his fever broke. He opened his eyes, finding her instantly. You're still here, he murmured. Where else would I be? She took his hand, no longer caring about propriety. Thought I dreamed you. His fingers tightened around hers. Been dreaming about you for weeks. Her breath caught. It's the fever talking. No. Despite his weakness, his gaze was clear. It's the truth finally getting said. Before she could respond, exhaustion claimed him again, and he drifted back to sleep, his hand still holding hers. Recovery took time. Noah chafed at the inactivity, but Zara was firm, refusing to let him return to work until Charlie declared him fit. During those days of convalescence, something shifted between them. Barriers fell away as they talked for hours about books, dreams, the past, the future. He told her about his mother, a Cheyenne woman who had married his father against both families' wishes, who had taught him to respect all living things and to judge people by their actions, not their origins or circumstances. She told him about her childhood, her father's descent into madness and alcohol after her mother's death, her determination to make her own way despite the whispers that followed her. They called you hopeless, he said one afternoon as they sat on the porch, watching a summer storm roll across the valley. But from the moment I saw you in town, I knew they were wrong. You were my only hope. What do you mean? She asked, startled. This ranch, everything I've built it was hollow. I had success, but no one to share it with. When I saw you walking down that street, head high despite their cruel words, I thought, there's a woman who understands what it means to build something from nothing. He took her hand, his touch sending warmth through her. You're my only hope for a life that means something, Zara, and my only dream worth having. The storm broke over them, rain drumming on the porch roof, but neither moved. In that moment, Zara felt the last of her defenses crumble. I never thought I'd find a place where I belonged, she admitted softly, or someone who would see me for who I am, not who my father was. I see you. His hand cupped her cheek. I've always seen you. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home after a long journey. Everything that had seemed impossible suddenly wasn't. Every door that had closed in her face no longer mattered. She had found her place not as a hotel maid or a housekeeper, but as a woman valued for her strength and spirit. 2 months later, they stood together in the town church, exchanging vows before a congregation that included not just the ranch hands and Charlie, serving proudly as best man, but many townspeople who had once whispered behind Zara's back. Mrs. Peterson dabbed at tears, Emily beamed, and even Mrs. Hathaway managed a genuine smile. I take you as my wife, Noah said, his voice carrying through the small church. Knowing that what others called hopeless, I call my greatest blessing. Zara's response came from the heart. And I take you as my husband, knowing that in you I found not just hope, but a future I never dared to imagine. As they rode back to the ranch that evening, Zara on a gentle mare, Noah on a surprisingly docile Diablo, the setting sun painted the western sky in shades of promise. Ahead lay the home they would share, the life they would build together. Not bad for a hopeless case, Noah teased, reaching across to take her hand. Zara smiled, her copper hair catching the last golden rays of sunlight. Hope was never the problem. It was finding someone who believed as strongly as I did. I believe in you, Zara Lawson. Always will. And as they crested the hill overlooking the Double L Ranch, their ranch now, Zara knew that the whispers would fade, but this truth would endure. She had found her place in the world, not despite who she was, but because of it. And in the eyes of the man who rode beside her, she would never be hopeless again.